Welcome to this podcast. Today let's learn about the powers of the President of India. The President is the first citizen and the head of the state. He has an important role in the country's governance as the executive powers of the Union are vested in him. President of India is a part of the Union Executive along with the Vice President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers and Attorney General of India. The President's basic and fundamental duty or obligation is to preserve, protect and defend the Constitution and law of India. Various powers and functions that are provided to the President by the Constitution of India are as follows. Let's start with the executive powers of the President of India. As the President is the executive head of the state, he enjoys extensive executive powers conferred to him by the Constitution of India. All the executive decisions are taken in the name of the President. He also has the power to make rules for the convenient transaction of business of the Indian government. The President appoints the Indian Prime Minister and, on the advice of the Prime Minister, other ministers of the Union. Apart from the Prime Minister, the President also has the power to appoint and remove the following constitutional officers and the members of the Union government. The full list of constitutional officers appointed by the Indian President are as follows. The Prime Minister, the judges of the High Court and the Supreme Court, the governors of the states, the Attorney General, the Comptroller and Auditor General, the Chairman and members of the Public Service Commission, the members of the Finance Commission and Officials Commission, the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners, special officers for the scheduled class castes and scheduled tribes, Commission to report on the administration of scheduled areas, Commission to investigate the conditions of backward classes, Special Officer for linguistic minorities. It's important to note that the President exercises his executive powers only with the advice of the councils of ministers. So, let's summarize. The executive powers of the Indian President are executive decisions that are taken in the name of the President, the power to make rules for the convenient transaction of business of the Indian government, appointing the Indian Prime Minister and other ministers of the Union, appointing and removing several constitutional officers and the members of the Union government. Now, let's see the legislative powers of the President of India. The President of India possesses extensive legislative powers. He can summon the prorogue, like a discontinuation of a session of the Parliament, and he can even dissolve the House of People, the Lok Sabha. However, this power can be performed by him only with some restrictions. The President is bound to summon the Parliament only within 6 months from the last sitting of the former session. The President also possesses the power to summon a joint sitting of both the Houses of Parliament to resolve a deadlock. For any bill to get the law's sanction, it has to receive the President's assent. A bill for recognizing a new state or alteration of state boundaries can only be introduced in either House of the Parliament after the President's recommendation. The state bills for imposing restrictions on freedom of trade and commerce also require the President's recommendation. The President can nominate 12 members of the Rajya Sabha and 2 Anglo-Indians to the Lok Sabha. So let's summarize. The legislative powers of the Indian President are as follows. Summoning and proroguing the Parliament, dissolving the House of People, President's assent is needed for any bill to get the law sanction, recommend bill in either House of the Parliament for recognizing a new state or alteration of state boundaries, President's recommendation is needed for imposing restrictions on freedom of trade and commerce in state, nominating 12 members to the Rajya Sabha and 2 Anglo-Indians to the Lok Sabha. Now, let's see the diplomatic powers of the President of India. As the head of the state, the President sends and receives ambassadors and other diplomatic representatives. All the international treaties and agreements are conferred and concluded in the name of the President. The President is also the representative of India in international forums and affairs. Now let's see the military powers of the President of India. The President is considered as the supreme commander of the defense forces of the country. He has exclusive power to declare war and peace. He has the power to appoint Chief of the Army, Chief of the Navy, and the Chief of the Air Force. However, the military powers of the President are regulated and controlled by the Parliament. Let's see the financial powers of the President of India. The President is also vested with some financial powers. The money bill is introduced with the prior recommendation of the President, and he also lays union budget before the Parliament. The President of India controls the contingency fund. The President also has the power to establish the Finance Commission every 5 years. Let's see the Ordinance Making powers of the President of India. To deal with unforeseen or urgent matters, the President has been vested with the Ordinance Making power, which is provided under Article 123 of the Indian Constitution. When either or both the houses of the Parliament are not in session and the President is satisfied that the conditions exist which makes it necessary for him to take immediate action, the President has the authority to issue an ordinance. And the ordinance issued by the President has the same force as an act of Parliament. The President also has the power to withdraw such an ordinance at any time. However, such ordinances need to be laid before both the houses of the Parliament. And the Parliament is bound to approve the ordinance within 6 weeks from the date of resumption of the session of the Parliament. Now let's summarize. The Indian President can issue an ordinance for taking immediate action when either or both the houses are not in session, or can withdraw such an ordinance at any time. Let's see the emergency powers of the President of India. The President of India is empowered with the power to declare an emergency either in the whole territory of India or in any state or any part of India. The President can impose 3 types of emergency. National emergency provided under Article 352, which is due to war, external aggression, or armed rebellion. State emergency provided under Article 356, due to failure in constitutional machinery in states. Financial emergency provided under Article 360, due to threat to the financial stability in India. The President may also suspend the right to move to the courts for the enforcement of fundamental rights, except for Article 20 and Article 21 during the emergency. All the proceedings pending in any court for the enforcement of such rights also remain suspended during the emergency period. The President of India also has the power to give directions to any state in which the state should exercise its executive powers. He may extend the normal life of the Lok Sabha by 1 year, each time up to a period not exceeding beyond 6 months after proclamation ceases to operate. Further, the President can also reduce the salaries of any class of state officials, the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Courts. During the period when the state emergency is in the proclamation, the President of India may assume the powers vested in the governor. Now let's summarize. The emergency powers of the Indian President are: he or she can declare an emergency, he or she can suspend the right to move to the courts for the enforcement of fundamental rights, he or she can also give directions to any state to exercise its executive powers, the President can also extend the normal life of the Lok Sabha by 1 year, and can also reduce the salaries of any class of state officials, the judge of the Supreme Court and the High Courts, and the President can also assume the governor's powers. Now let's see the pardoning power of the President of India. Article 72 of the Indian Constitution grants pardoning powers to the President of India. As per this power, the President of India can pardon, reprieve, respite, commute, or remit the sentence of any person who is convicted of any offence by court-martial or against any law relating to a matter to which the executive power of the Union extends, or in which the sentence is one of death. The veto power of the President of India. Article 111 of the Constitution of India deals with the veto power of the President. A bill is introduced in the Parliament after it is presented to the Indian President for its approval. The President is free to either reject the bill, return the bill, or withhold his assent to the bill. The President's choice over the bill is called his veto power. Thank you so much for listening regarding the powers of the President of India. Several topics from this particular podcast are essential for various competitive exams like the UPSC. Thank you so much for listening.